Who's got it better than us?
Nobody! Robert is being chased, thrown on the run, and it is caught. Touchdown, Keenan Allen. What a great...
My goal is not to break you. My goal is to make you harder to break.
Comes back, number 6.
Huge sack by Joey Bosa.
Touchdown! 90-yard touchdown!
Off at the 8-yard line by Derwin James.
Sets his speed, takes a shot downfield, has Knighton. Caught! Touchdown! Chargers!
Boys, grab your lunch boxes and go attack this day with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Thunder Down Under Chargers podcast. I'm Andy, your host, joined by Jack and Alistair, as always. And it's exciting because football's back, baby. It might just be the Hall of Fame game, but it's good to see those sexy powder blue pants tearing you one off the Detroit Lions. Woo-wee! Beautiful day to start off with. Antonio Gates handed his gold jacket from LaDainian Tomlinson, and the Chargers showed up and celebrated that moment with a clinical performance, forcing 2 turnovers early, and running away with a 34-7 victory over Detroit, which was great to see. Also through the week, just before we get into the big game breakdown, obviously Rashawn Slater has his contract extension, 4 years, $114 million, including 92 guaranteed, a record. So it makes Slater the highest paid offensive lineman per annual average pay, and frees up another $5 million to Joe Hortiz running cap space. In other interesting news, the team has met with former Charger Keenan Allen as a potential Mike Williams replacement in the wide receiver room. According to Keenan, the meeting went very well, but there's some other big names who are requesting trades. They're not happy. We've got Scary Terry from Washington that would be very exciting in powder blues at the wide receiver position. Trey Hendrickson has reported back to Bengals training camp. There's still no signature on the dotted line, so that's still one to watch. And the biggest news of all, and I hate that it came, a week or so after we did the NFC East preview, but Micah Parsons has had a gutful. He has had enough. He doesn't want to be anywhere near Dallas anymore, so he's requested a trade. CD Lamb's blown up and called out Jerry Jones, and it's just what the NFL world needs on the eve of the season is just Dallas disarray. It's just fantastic to see. Gents, I just want to get your takes on Keenan Allen and then the other 3 names I've mentioned, bearing in mind that one will cost probably next to nothing and the others will require quite a bounty of picks and money and everything to get across. So, Jack, we'll start with you. How do you feel about Keenan Allen returning to the Chargers?
But before I answer that, Andy, I just want to say, who's cutting onions? Because I'm crying in here. I think Phil learned his lesson on that little tribute video that the Chargers put out. He just started crying. So what was he wearing? What was he wearing when Gates was speaking? He was wearing his shades. You couldn't tell if there were onions being cut or not because he was just going, yep. But I tell you what, the floodgates were opening for Antonio. Wonderful to see him. Much deserved. Awesome. Let's get back to your question. Obviously, Keenan Allen. I'm going to let Alistair take a lot of this because he might have some home truths that he needs to ask himself after the send-off he gave Keenan Allen a year or so ago. But yeah, listen, Keenan would be great. Mike is obviously gone now. Keenan still has some value, I believe. It's just whether he is ready to accept the mentality of not him being the guy anymore. That's the only thing that I'd be concerned about. It seems like there's a real, and I'll talk about this a little later, but there's this joy at training camp and with the Chargers at the moment. I'd hate for him to come in and disrupt that. Again, he does kind of represent the old Chargers. This is the new Chargers. So if he's willing to perhaps change his mindset a little bit, because he wanted to leave and get paid and went to Chicago before. He wasn't willing to jump on the bus. So are we willing to pick him back up? I'm still 50-50 on it, Al.
Yeah. Do you want to have a crack at Parsons before I talk about Keenan, or I'll share some Keenan thoughts now?
Oh, listen, I mean, Micah Parsons would be incredible to play for the Chargers. I just quickly we were talking offline, did some numbers on all of his pass rushing snaps in the NFL, including all his rookie years and stuff. I mean, he's sitting at around 19 to 20% pass rush win rate. Those either are down as hurries or they're converted into sacks. So I think he's probably going to want somewhere in the realm of 40 plus, somewhere in the realm of $45 million a year. That's what you're kind of paying for elite edges now. He'll want to be paid the top. And I would give QJ, I'd give a first, and I'd possibly even give a third next year as well. Bring him, because I think that immediately changes our defense and just elevates it to possibly a top 5, if not top 3.
Yeah, I agree. I think there are these 5 elite edge rushers in the NFL who hit that 20% plus. Hendrickson, Parsons, Garrett, Nick Bosa, and actually Trey Hendrickson last couple of years.
Do you get TJ Watt in there?
I think TJ Watt last year fit in just below, but he converts a lot into sacks, so hits really high sack numbers, right? Yeah. He's got that knack for the forced fumble, and he makes them count. But I think Parsons would allow Jesse Minter to do so much stuff. If you think about the simulated pressures where they think you're blitzing, but you actually bring 4 and Parsons is in the A gap and you've got 7 in coverage, and then next time you go fire zone, so you bring 5 and 3 drop, offenses won't know what to do. So I would love them to really pay whatever it takes in terms of draft capital, players and salary to bring over what I think is a transformative player in the NFL. Him I'm high on. Keenan, I'm just right on the fence. So I've got rid of the emotion. No place for emotion when you're pretending to be a rational being in this world, right? And you know I like to bring the data out. And I think the data from Keenan's season in Chicago tells you they tried to make him the centerpiece of the offense, and maybe he's not that anymore. And I posted this on Twitter, but I'll share some quick numbers. So of receivers last year who were targeted at least 85 times. So teams who want to run the ball through this guy, there were 41 of those guys in the NFL. Keenan's PFF grade was 37th of those 41 wide receivers. His reception percentage, 59.8%, was 37th of those 41 receivers. So a lot of the time when Caleb Williams was throwing at him, it wasn't connecting. Now there's a bit of chicken and egg there. Who's to blame? But his targets, he got targeted 117 times. So that put him at 17th of those 41. But his yardage, 744 yards, put him at 35th of those 41. So for me, part of the reason why Shane Waldron got fired as OC is they brought in Keenan. They had Rome Odunze and DJ Moore, and they tried to run a lot of concepts where Keenan was the target. And I thought he was out of shape the first half of the year and just was not separating. Caleb's having to hold the ball, running around like a chicken in a yard. And then who's to blame? Maybe everybody, maybe nobody, Jack. But it told me that Keenan, to your point, has to be happy to come in and be a different guy. And maybe the value of the contract he'll be offered and the earnest conversation Hortiz has had with him makes him comfortable with that. And Andy, if he is comfortable with that, I do see the value, not just on the field, but off the field of what he could bring, especially with Mike Williams now not playing this year. What do you think?
I completely agree. I think it's a far wiser move for the off-field reasons, for the leadership, the veteran presence, still that chemistry in dire times with Herbert. But that conversation you'd hope would have surrounded things like, you're not going to be number one. Like, we'll get you in here for bits and pieces. Don't have huge expectations of you. You're not going to be targeted 100 times. All that hopefully was in the understanding. And for Keenan, I think he reported on a stream that the conversation went really well. Maybe he is cool with that. As I said at the top, I don't think it's going to cost a bucket load to bring him in for a year. Maybe there's worth. I'm neither here nor there about it. Obviously, I didn't feel as aggressively against him walking out on the team initially. It's all sort of business there. So look, it'd be cool to get him back and another guy to retire as a Charger. That's exciting stuff. One other roster, interesting little roster thing to come in the last 24, 48 hours is Denzel Perryman. Getting done for arms possession. going to a firing range. So hopefully that can sort of dissolve and there's not too many issues, because that's another veteran presence in the linebacker room that we strongly need heading into this season.
Andy, I'm just interested. I assume because he's coming from, he was playing at Texas, right? So I'm assuming the gun laws are quite different in Texas than they are in California, and it was just an oversight that he was carrying assault weapons in his trunk. And maybe listen, American listeners, I'm not going to comment on gun laws, but
I was tiptoeing around that one too.
Is that maybe a thing? Maybe they're welcome in Texas and not welcome in California. I'm not sure. If someone could enlighten us, that'd be great.
Yeah, I don't know. Just my guess would be there's weed dispensaries in California, there's gun dispensaries in Texas. That's how I see it. So, you're either smoking weed or you're shooting guns.
Yeah.
No.
Which one would you visit, Andy?
And
California, for sure.
Mate. Yeah.
California, 100%. Make peace, not protest. That's me. Like I said, football's back, 34-7. Jack, let's get stuck into the review of the Hall of Fame game. Where do you want to start us off, mate? That was a pretty special opening quarter, hey?
Yeah. Listen, I just want to start with the big men, because that's where my eyes go straight away. I'm sure we can talk about Trey Lance and all those other things, and I would like to leave some room just for some high-level organizational stuff at the end and what it represents. But yeah, I'll obviously preface everything that we say, or I say anyway. Listen, the lid's off. Yeah, we're all excited. It's incredible. It is preseason, and just to remember a little factoid for everyone, that a team that wins the Hall of Fame game has never gone on in any season to win a playoff game. So that's a little bit of a cloud over our shoulders. But biggest thing for me, and where I'll start, is the interior of the interior.
Talk more
of the
about guns than bullshit tropes.
Interior of the offensive line, Zion Johnson and Jamari Solier. They performed in a way that I would expect them to. I thought Johnson had a couple of fumbled snaps of the ball. Not too concerned about that. They weren't bad ones. But the play I did want to highlight, and we'll talk about KLS in a second, but that play for KLS, Zion Johnson was integral to what happened there. He snaps the ball. There is a defender in that B gap. The defender takes on sort of the Johnson and Solier together, but then there's a stunt from the blitzing linebacker coming through. Zion Johnson does a fantastic job, and I was really interested to see how well he picks it up. Passes the B gap, or the defensive tackle, to Solier, picks up that blitzing linebacker perfectly, leaving room for Lance to throw that absolute strike to KLS. That, to me, from a guy that's never played center before, he looked fluid, very, very good. And also his power. I would expect him as a first-round draft pick to be that powerful and dominating defenders. I would. So I'm not saying that this is incredible, this is amazing. So it's an expectation. But from my standpoint, it wasn't as bad as it could have been. And I think, if anything, he's shown for me that he's actually okay, perhaps. Al, where are you at?
Promising. I do think Roman scripts his plays in a way. It's clever. It's preseason. You start with some rollouts to get Trey Lance's confidence up with some passes into the flats. Don't forget that also makes it easier for the O-line to pass protect. If you think about it, it's a big rollout. There's no way the defenders are going to get out to the right. So that allows your O-line to also get some confidence. But I thought of his 12 snaps, you then saw Zion have a couple of true pass sets where he looked solid, and you described the one where he had to pick up the stunting end really well. The question, Jack, is, of those 12 snaps, I think you'd say 2 of the snaps were not quite there. The one that was bobbled onto the ground down is dead, and then one that's a bit too high to Trey Lance. If you extrapolate that out to a full game of 48, 55 snaps, can you really afford that in the season? So do you keep persisting with this with 3 preseason games left, or do you say, we'll get Bozeman in at center and it's Zion and Solier fighting for that left guard spot?
No. I think you keep pushing Zion Johnson. I'd like to see some more snaps. I don't think that extrapolation is fair because remember, it's the first time he's snapping the ball in a live game. So you'd expect some improvement that. And I get what you're saying, 2 snaps out of 12, put that out, then he's missnapping the ball, 10% of the time. I don't think
necessarily,
that's necessarily fair. Yeah. No, I'd like to see more from Zion Johnson. And I believe the spot's still up for grabs as well. The one thing I would say that I enjoy Zion Johnson there is that he's far more athletic than Bradley Bozeman. His ability to hold defenders and push back and move with quick feet, far better than anything that I saw from Bradley Bozeman last year. So no, I would like to see Zion Johnson play out the preseason games and win that spot. That would be wonderful.
Yep, him and Sawyer, big ticks from me.
Yep.
Andy, where do you want to take us next? We watched this game together. I liked your uniform chat at the start. I'm usually not into it, but I thought those blue pants looked really sweet. And when we were sitting there, listeners, we were saying preseason games usually start to drag in the second quarter. I didn't feel that way a bit about this one. For me, this game started to drag right when 86-year-old Brent Musburger and 88-year-old Dick Vermeil are swapping war stories from, meeting Joe Namath in the 60s. That's when I started to tune out, Andy. But otherwise, it was pretty entertaining stuff.
Yeah, once the majority of the broadcast was focused around, interviewing Sterling Sharp, and then, as you mentioned, that's sort of, and your daughter Imi had woken up and had completely encased at least my attention. I think I saw when the broadcast was focused on the game was excellent. And Jackie mentioned him earlier. Let's discuss the rookies, because I thought Amarian Hampton, 2 carries, but that first run looked great. I thought the first run looked great. KLS, man, that's something to be really excited about as Chargers fans, I think. We saw just a great clip of that, the sort of out and in that he broke the defender's ankles. His route running looks crisp. He's fast. That one on to the sort of the near side of the broadcast where Trey Lance just floated it up was awesome. So I'm very excited about KLS. And I actually thought Trey Lance was pretty good too. I know he's not a rookie, but he's new to the fold, and he gave me a lot more, instilled a lot more confidence in him. The way that the game was sort of scripted to his strengths. He has that sort of sneaky ability to extend the plays and avoid would-be tacklers. Nice touch on the pass. It's pretty good. So really happy with how Roman called the game for what he had out there. He didn't show too many of his cards, and I'm just excited to see the offensive rookies. Jack, how did you feel about KLS, man?
Yeah, it's weirdly, he's bigger than I thought he would be with a guy with 4.37 speed. He sort of looked bigger, and I was like, oh, okay. And the body English he showed to get that touchdown, that little shimmy shake. Listen, it's not Lad McConkey-ish, is it? But there is something there, right? So if he can continue to develop under Sanjay Lal, and clearly Lal has instilled this confidence within him to go out and do stuff. He looked really explosive from that first step, and we know Sanjay Lal is really big on that explosive, really staying down in your route early and then popping up and then going. I thought that was wonderful. Al, I do have a question for you. You question Amarian Hampton's vision and his decision-making a little bit sometimes. First run, sure, fine. Second run, bounces out to the left. And realistically, he should have probably gone straight into where his blocking was, but made the decision to pop outside, and Rock Yassin comes along and tackles him. And fans, I thought the way that he fell, because I saw his left toe kind of bounce off the ground, and I've gone, oh my God, I think he's broken his leg or something. That's where my mind goes straight away. He's fine, obviously. Is that something to be a little bit worried about, Alistair? We didn't see much of him at all, but I'm giving you this might be a perfect in for your criticism of taking Amarian Hampton where we did in the first round.
Just before you answer, Al, Jack, would you say that his body Spanish did a couple of funny things on that run outside?
Body English is a term that is used in the NBA, and it's for all the American listeners, they'll appreciate it. You can make fun of me, but I know my stuff, Andy.
Body language will do. Go on.
Body English, because it's expressive. Anyway.
the irony there is whatever critique I had was Hampton was sometimes he's so patient running between the tackles that he misses opportunities to bounce it outside. So this was the reverse of that. Also, I haven't watched that run closely enough to see what run was it and what was he supposed to do. So I don't want to have a go at him. Ryan, I'm listening to you, my friend. What I've never had any issues with Hampton is just how good he is at shaking one arm tackle and being, a strong back. And I thought on the first carry, that was perfect. There was a little jump cut, broke a tackle, takes it for 8 yards. And yes, on the second one, when he hit the edge, I thought he was going to go home because he's so fast.
So
I thought he's got the edge. Here's a touchdown. And he just couldn't quite get into that third gear there. And credit to Rock Yassin, fantastic tackle. But I was not concerned. Too early to be concerned, but I'm glad you gave me the opportunity to drive the dagger in. But no Chargers fans.
I'm here to serve.
Hampton looks good. I want to talk a bit about this. Actually, first KLS, the efficiency in his route savvy is everything he spoke about during the week, and the work he's doing with Sanjay Lal, who I'm now starting to think might be the best wide receiver coach in the league, or at least one of them. When it's starting to add up when you see Lad McConkey last year and QJ's improvement, modest as it might have been, and KLS, the way he beat press coverage on both of those, he used a step back release on Ennis Rakestraw, who's a second round draft pick, to get open the first time. So if you think about how do I beat press coverage, he's up on me on the line. On that first one with the deep sideline pass, off the snap, he actually took a little step backwards and then went in and then went out. So that's quite advanced route savvy. And on that second one, on DiCaprio Boodle, he's using a diamond release where he's, as you said, he's come up, faked outside, slant in, and then that speed after he's caught the slant. Nice throw, Uyangalale, I got to say. That was really, really impressive. So I was pumped about all of the rookie performances. I'm going to go to you soon on Caldwell, Jack, because I know you want to talk about your big boys, but I also want to set you up to talk a bit about this idea of Trey Lance saying that it's a joyful environment. And what I saw from the Chargers in that game was a team that was well prepared, disciplined, professional, and having a lot of fun out there. What did that tell you about the Harbaugh effect?
Thank you. That's a perfect setup. I mean, where do I start? There's a lot to talk about, so I'll try not to talk about too much. And again, I'll preface this in saying that this is preseason, but I am going to use the marker of the Telesco years and the Staley years against what I saw yesterday. And last year for Harbaugh in the preseason was a bit of a pass. It's brand new. You're dealing with a roster that you don't really have your fingerprints on yet. So the thing that I said offline numerous times is that I really think the sign of a strong organization is that we know that our top guys aren't going to be playing, but there felt with Telesco that there was always, he had his guys, and you know what? There's actually not a lot of roster movement. Maybe there are 3 spots up for grab, but I'm going to keep my guys that I've found, even if they're not particularly great. And there was that feeling of, well, there are guys that were playing really well, but we never got to see them actually even think about having a chance to make it. I really feel that with the catalyst here is Trey Lance, right? Trey Lance looked calm. Trey Lance looked ready. And you could see it in his face. When Harbaugh was giving him the quarterback slaps before the game, you could just see in Trey Lance this kind of joy. And that's exactly what he said after the game. He said, yep, I've been a lot of places. The guys really love coming to work here. I truly think that this performance is a great showing of where we're at as an organization. The guys seem happy, they're supporting each other, and they want to play because the tackling is some of the best tackling I've seen in a preseason game. They are flying around. We might talk about the defense. We will talk about the defense in a second, but I truly think that this is and you know what? Detroit Lions fans will be like, oh, this is your Super Bowl. You never made blah, blah, blah. Fair enough. All those criticisms.
Neither are they. Neither of Detroit. Shut up.
But no turnovers. We moved the ball. Trey Lance looked like he knew what he was doing. The offense looked confident. The defense even far more confident. I just think we're in a really, really good spot. It's kind of a wide-angle lens there. I think. I think it's great.
Completely agree with you, Jack. And I think that's a great segue to move into defense and special teams. And to be honest, I didn't think I'd say this, but I'd rather have Trey Lance as my backup than Kyle Allen throwing baked potatoes out there to Chargers defenders. But it all started like, you know, we credit Greg Roman sort of feeding Trey Lance and that, but it started off with, you know, on the kick return to start the game, forced fumble from Kendall Williamson, short field position, another interception or a couple of interceptions returned deep in the field, great field position. So it was all of those guys on the fringe of the 53 that came, and this was the most inspiring thing for me for the whole game, is all those guys who are fighting for a roster spot balled out, right? You've got all the positive headaches, I guess, for Jesse Minter of how many safeties am I going to take? How many cornerbacks are we going to take? And who makes up the depth of those rooms, right? Because you've got Uncle Tony Jefferson playing great. Nico Reed, man, what a game. Unbelievable game. Just the way that from that cloud corner position, he jumped the route, took it home, had a great tackle on special teams as well. Another pass break up, like zero receptions on his targets and a 95 odd coverage grade. Like unreal. That's the sort of stuff where you're licking your chops going, this is what we want to see from preseason football. So very excited to see all the, as I said, the good headaches, the good questions that are, you know, making those guys like Jasir Taylor, who has had a good preseason, didn't think he had a particularly great game. It's forcing, you know, competitors welcome, and it's a really awesome culture. And no wonder all these guys want to play for this team and want to play for Coach Harbaugh, because we're creating such a great environment for everyone who's in Powder Blues. And I think it's fantastic. I'll leave plenty of room for the two of you guys to discuss special teams and defensive players as well. But yeah, I was just enamored by the likes of Nico Reed coming out and just doing what he did. Jack, how did you, as we're on to the defensive side of the ball, your big man Caldwell, you spoke offline about Jones, Hand, those guys popping up. How did you feel the new guys coming into Minter's defense performed and fit in with what they've got going on?
What I saw was a fairly disciplined defensive line, actually. Listening to what I guess Minter wants to do. I know that Naquan Jones flashed. I thought he showed fast feet and quite strong hands in pass rush. His PFF grades possibly don't show that. But he was kind of popping off for me. He was getting into the backfield, didn't really have the finishing ability. He's a big man. But I tell you what, Jamari Caldwell was doing some things that I wouldn't have expected from a rookie. The way he was able to eat blocks, the way he was able to stay strong, and he's got speed. When he sheds a block, there was a tackle on the running back that he just absolutely slams into him. And there was another gap discipline play when he takes two blockers on, and the power that he has, the snap power into the offensive lineman, you can see their helmets head back. So he's got his timing right. I thought he was fantastic. And it's a very different defensive line looking, and it's morphing into what I love. It's just big man eating big man. And it's really wonderful to see. I'll let you continue there.
They're so big. You notice it straight away. It is a clear objective of this team to have gotten bigger in the trenches on both sides of the ball. Every reserve offensive lineman as well who came into the game, 6'6", 315. By the way, Naquan Jones is listed as 6'3", 315 on the Chargers website. I think he might be more like 380. He is, or at least 330. Yeah, he's a big lad. But I saw it the same way you did. I saw him affecting and moving the line and affecting the passer. Jamari Sawyer got the pressure that caused Kyle Allen to do that intentional grounding at the start.
Caldwell.
Sorry, Caldwell. Together that whole defensive line played well. To build on what Andy was saying, I've never seen a position battle like it is now for the Chargers. We haven't talked about the running backs yet much, but goodness gracious, between Vidal, Haskins, now Naheem Hines Miller or Miller Hines, Andy, whichever one it was, Najee's not healthy. Who plays? Can Hines make it as a punt or kick returner? Is he fighting with Darius Davis? And then on the defensive side, Nico Sicko Reed. Jack, you might have for the first time someone make the 53-man roster with your last name. We might be able to actually get this done and buy you one of those jerseys with your name on it, and he be a productive player. But I don't know how Jesse Minter's going to work out the entire DB group, because you're looking at anyone from Dean Leonard, Jasir Taylor, who didn't play that well, Triquez Bridges, Nico Reed. The safeties, what the hell do you do there? Mickens played well. Yeah. Jefferson was sensational, and he really set that tone early. He's been such a great pickup for this culture. And even Kendall Williamson, Andy, I thought on the field he was good. He had that forced fumble on the first snap of the game. He played all right last year. What the hell do you do with this room?
Yeah. Like I said, they're great problems to have, right? But you're also seeing just like awesome input on special teams too, which is what these depth pieces need to be able to contribute. So, we've enjoyed the likes of Dean Leonard, with his special teams contribution, but maybe the likes of Kendall Williamson are going to overshadow that. So, I honestly, I'm not envious of being in Jesse Minter's position to make these decisions. But we've still got a few more weeks to watch it all unfold. I have no doubt that there's going to be some great decisions. You also got to be a bit tactical as well with the likes of the safety position, where you've got Molden, Derwin, Gilman. Then what do you do? Do you take Muckens, or do you take Jefferson? Which one do you risk trying to stow away on the practice squad? They're great problems to have. We're not scratching for depth and going, we're actually 2 guys short and everyone else is a jobber. We're going, we've got 5 guys that we could be pretty comfortable taking, but we're probably only going to take 4. So we've just got to be a little bit strategic, making that, call as to who we drop to the practice squad. So, like I said, awesome stuff to have. And
I mean, it's even like you got to think about like the Morris Brash, right? A year ago we were like, this guy's got, but you know what? You guys got like Kyle Guidry. You've got Caleb Murphy, who looked really good too.
Yep.
So it's this weird thing where, and I can't remember ever experiencing before as a Charger fan, where you're actually looking down the roster, and it's those final bits. They're probably practice squad players, but they're all showing up. And last year, Morris Brash was the top of the edge rushing group, but now he's not. And so that is indicative of just that constant improvement. And as I said before, I truly believe these guys think that when they hear Harbaugh say, if you play well, you make the team. Now, we always heard Telesco say that. We always heard other coaches say that, but they're like, nah, we're going to stick with our vets. It just shows in their demeanor and their ability to go out and play. It's wonderful. It's really, really good.
Everything will be earned. In Australian football, we always talk about the strength of a team being relative to the bottom 6. And I think that does translate into the NFL as well. You can have your star pieces and stuff, but injuries will come and go, and you need those guys who bring up the tail of the roster to be contributors when their number is called. And I don't know, I've never experienced a preseason before where our depth pieces have all come to play and to contribute and are fighting for this. It's a great thing to watch and be a part of. It's really awesome. Anything further on the game? We've got a few more preseasons, so we don't need to pick apart.
I've never seen anything like
it. Yeah, it's great. I thought
it's just good. And one of the goals, again, I said at the offline to these guys and the guys from Powder Keg, I want to see us dominate a preseason game, because I cannot remember the last time that we did. I want to see us dominate it, get it. And I know there was preseason doesn't mean anything, but we've won already. And it's a pretty important game. We need to show up for, because it's larger than that. We showed up for Gates. We showed up for Phil. We showed up for Canton. Like, we showed up for it, that most people were watching it as well. Like, Detroit, do what you want to do, but I'm glad to be on the winning side, not on we had 5 turnovers. Oh, don't worry, it's all preseason. We've got ourselves organized. No, clearly we're organized from tip to toe. It's great.
Yep. Really good.
Is there anything? Look, we've been very positive, and so we should be when we've won the game 34-7, and it's probably the best preseason performance any of us have ever watched. Maybe for our last 5 minutes, we talk about any areas of concern. I might start. I do think the edge group, even though it was competitive, like you said, Jack, might be a watch point. And who knows, maybe this is why a Micah Parsons might be someone we go after, because I thought Kyle Kennard, of his 14 pass rush reps, 0 pressures, and I saw some of those issues I had with him when he was at South Carolina, struggling with power. And, Bud Dupree's not playing, but we're talking about a 4th edge spot. Isn't it incredible? That's what I've got to talk about if I've got a negative to add. That's one area I'm looking at, pass rush from the edge in particular. Anything else, Jack, that you're thinking, this is not what I'm liking at the minute?
Defensively, Junior Colson was a little bit of an issue.
That's where I'd go to, Jack.
Yeah, there was a little bit of an issue. Well, I'll let you take him then, Andy. But I was expecting a little bit more from Trey Harris. Whether he didn't get the opportunity, I mean, he was solid from what I could see, because I focused on a couple of his routes early, then he sort of left the game. But yeah, Trey Harris wasn't super. I wasn't impressed by him, but at the end of the day, I think he's shown enough in camp. But when KLS is showing out, what's to say? But yeah, Junior Colson, Andy.
Yeah, look, nothing too drastic, but I just have liked to have thought that after a redshirt year last year, essentially, there would have just been a little bit more of a confident presence, understanding kind of his role and that. But like I said, it's the first preseason game, so there are things to keep an eye on. I think Al, you're spot on with the depth of the edge, the reliance sort of on that 3rd and 4th spots with Dupree and Kennard. So yeah, look, we'll just wait. Nothing too problematic really for me, but yeah, just good things to watch, Jack.
Cool. Yeah, and because we've been so consistent and agreeing with each other, I'll just say on Trey Harris, I thought even though Trey Lance played well, I reckon he missed 4 throws on one-on-one opportunities to the outside, whether it's fade balls, and I thought one of them was to Trey Harris early. And even though Lance was solid and made good decisions, I thought that throwing outside the numbers, apart from the KLS completion, he left something out there. I reckon if it was Herbert and Trey Harris, maybe we see one of those balls get completed. But we'll find out. A few more games to go. I agree. He didn't stand out, Jack.
Yeah, Jack, did you have anything to touch on with sort of organisational chemistry, philosophy, before we move on to the second last part of our opponent series?
Well, Jack, can I ask you a question then? Because you talked a bit about Harbaugh's culture. QJ got the week off. Will Disley played?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Anything there? Like, should QJ have got some snaps in this game? Do you agree with him being held out as a starter?
Oh, there seems to be. That's a little bit of a decision, because if you put him in to get some snaps, then maybe his confidence drops. And he's also not playing with Herbert. He's playing with Trey Lance. As you said, if Trey Harris is being missed, then QJ might get missed. Then all of a sudden the media goes, oh, he's not catching. He should be out there dominating. So I think what you do is you instill the confidence within him and say, hey, mate, you're not going to play. We know what you are. I think that goes a long way. Do I agree with it? Would I like to see more from QJ? I think we all would. But ultimately, it's a long game, right? And again, I will go back. There aren't many players that can still put up almost 200 yards in an NFL game of football. Arguably, yes, he's got a good quarterback thrown to him with Justin Herbert, but he can do it. I keep going back to that and saying he can do it, he can do it, he can do it. That's how I'd be coaching him anyway. Andy, just really quickly, as I said, I've spoken most about it, but the symbol that Trey Lance is for this organization is he's kind of like the figurehead of the positivity, I think. He has been through rack and ruin. He's a bust, essentially. He's one of the worst reaches in history, you'd suggest. He goes out there, looks confident, and credit Greg Roman too with making a game plan that suits Trey Lance. I think that shows a little bit of adaptability as well. But overall, things are very, very positive at the Bolts. However, 1 or 2 injuries that happen, things start to get a little bit rocky. But touch wood, I'm touching wood with my feet and my hands. Nice, positive start. And we'll go on to our opponents.
Yeah, nice. Nice, mate. Well said. All right, let's break it down with the AFC West. Jack, do you want to kick us off with the Kansas City Chiefs, please?
I can. Okay, so I've taken a little bit of a different approach. Alistair has shared all the categories that we would like to maybe touch on. I'm going to go through it category by category, okay? So I'm not going to really look at the roster too much. We know the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm just going to go through and explain where my thinking has gone. Now, Ryan Watkins, I've done a lot of study in the off-season. I'm hoping that some of these words make sense. I'm putting the Jesse Minter hat on, the Harbaugh hat on, the Roman hat on. I'm going to use some terminology and explain some things. All right. Obviously, opposition X factors. That's where I'm going to start with the Kansas City Chiefs. I think that it's Chris Jones and Spagnuolo's simulated pressure. Last year, they were top 5 in knockdowns pressures despite their middling sack totals. So their drives are dying on schedule, not on splash plays. So I think that's a really important part. McDuffie is going to be pushed back inside, I think, to the slot where he's more natural. So I think he's going to be a little bit of an X factor and have another good year because they've kind of gotten a little bit, their cornerback room is kind of expanded a little bit. I think Noah Gray is rising and he's going to be frustrating and he's kind of taking some of those snaps off of Kelsey. And I think that the Xavier Worthy, but with the addition of Jalen Royals, I think they're kind of going to have this gadget aspect to their game, which is going to be really, really frustrating. And I think they're going to be able to generate some cheap explosives without those deep drops, which puts Mahomes in that helter-skelter mode. So best ways to attack them, what I'm looking up, and here we go, Alistair, see what you think. Put those listening ears on. Stress the left side protection rules, and then throw where the help comes from. So show 5-up looks, mug both A gaps, and overload to Jalen Moore and the left guard because they're going to be finding some chemistry there. From a 3-by-1, run Y choice. This is on our offense. H option away from McDuffie, so keep him out of it. Pair with slide screens or draw back to the overload to punish those simulated pressures from Spagnuolo. Best ways to defend them. Now, Ryan Watkins, I hope you've got your listening ears on. Live in these 2 high shells pre-snap. Late spin to robber on Kelsey and Gray's side. Jam and bracket those tight ends on 3rd down with a high-low cone. Contain that interior rush. And sort of make Mahomes hitch into the push, which means that, let him step up into the pocket. Make sure we, as we always say, contain that pass rush. Versus 12 personnel, because I think Andy Reid's going to be running a lot more of that as well, given their wide receiver room. Match with big nickel, fit downhill, make Gray, Royals, and the boundary wide receivers fit into tight windows. I'm going to leave it there. So that was my best way to defend, best way to attack, and opposition X factors from what I've got. I've got a few more, but Alistair, I'll take it. You can take over my speaking there.
Well, I don't need to take over the X and O's. You're set to become an NFL assistant. You should be applying to the Chiefs. I'm not going to address that because I agree with what you said. That's how I would be attacking this team. I do think the Chiefs, can they continue to survive the way they've been playing? As you said, Jalen Royals is a bit of a gadget player where you get the ball off to him quickly rather than pushing down the field. And I'm looking at this team. Last year, it was the lowest big-time throw percentage of Mahomes' career. His average depth of target was 6.9 yards. That was 25th out of 26 quarterbacks. Only 2 threw it shorter. And he had the highest pressure to sack percentage of his career, 17%. So it's not a very exciting or dynamic offense the way it's really structured. Now, I know they're going to hope Rashee Rice can change some of that. If he's suspended, we'll find out. But that offense is lacking the zhuzh it had when, Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce were running roughshod over the entire league. Kelsey's now older. Gray's stepping up, but he's not the same guy. You're going to rely on a lot of throws and screens and, junk screens. I don't know if I feel as worried about the Chiefs as I have ever, like in recent memories. Spags, Andy Reid, and Dave Tobe have been together now. They're entering their 7th season of the same coaching staff. I think that's great, but also now has the league just passed them by, Andy, and that Super Bowl loss where they got dominated Was that the sign that now these guys are up for grabs and the AFC West is a live division all of a sudden? I don't know.
Yeah, has the Chiefs' philosophy become a little stale? It's interesting. I still think that in the wide receiver room, there's still weapons to make Mahomes' skill set work well. You know, Sky Moore, Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, we'll see, Rashee Rice. There's still some names in there that can, you know, stretch the field and make the defense guess. But even though they signed Trey Smith to be the highest paid interior lineman, I believe, in the offseason, Creed Humphrey's still the generational centre. They've shifted Kingsley Suamataia inside to left guard, drafted Josh Simmons. We'll wait and see how that left side of the line works out. Had issues on the right tackle side with Jawan Taylor and Wanya Morris. So there's health, there's concerns. All that stuff sort of did lead to a higher pressure to sack ratio. And I think it's definitely leveled the playing field a little bit within the AFC West and the AFC in general, because the way that the Eagles in the Super Bowl were able to force that pressure and just crush Mahomes, force him into essentially making mistakes. Like, he was just underthrowing balls and getting picked off by white cornerbacks. The world had gone crazy. It was a joy to watch. I think that it's definitely kind of leveled things out a little bit and put a bit of doubt into Mahomes' mind. I'm not taking away from the fact that he's a fantastic freak of an athlete and quarterback, but I think they're just chipping away a little bit and the cracks are starting to show, and it just gives everyone else a little bit more hope that the Chargers have an opportunity this year to supersede the Chiefs and take out the division. 9 years in a row is just too much. Piss off. Had enough of you.
I hear what you're saying, but I still think that this defense has just slowly started to continue to build. I still think Chris Jones, once Aaron Donald retired, he is the most disruptive interior defensive lineman in the league. You always have to plan for him. And I think while we might not see this is now, but what I'm worried about is that this is now going into Andy Reid really fun territory, because he's got all these little gadget players and we know how clever he is at, you know, I would be expecting early on to see a lot of heavy 12 personnel, and that whole idea of I think they're going to try and take away as much play from that left side of the line as possible because of the nature of the moving pieces and the rookie there. So I think there's going to be lots of these fun little shot plays, like, or jet motion RPOs, all these little, and it's going to be really frustrating, I think. But the key for Reid is not to try and bring those out too early as a one-trick pony, because teams will very quickly start to read that. I think of that Mike McDaniel, lots of pre-snap motion, a couple of years ago when Tyreek Hill was just running everywhere. Spags, I think, you can guarantee there's death taxes, and Spags will always put early sim pressure on to test your protection and guarantee that he's going to blitz late game, no matter what. We just know that, right? So I think you always expect to have that third and long sim, third and long fire zone stuff to come down. I think this team is still dangerous. They always are. They're well coached. And I think if I go to my pigeonhole, and then I'll go to some precious little gems, and that'll kind of finish off the Chiefs, is that there's the trope is that, Kelsey and Mahomes are still there. I think that's the trope, and it's wrong. I still think that this defense is going to be one of the best in the league, and there's going to be some frustrations for opposition defenses with names that aren't Mahomes and Kelsey. Weirdly enough, a little gem before I pass on to you, El, to finish the Chiefs off. KC is 80-25 at Arrowhead over the past decade, 10-0 in 2024. Obviously, the crowd noise is huge there and the impact there. But they come up against Eagles, Ravens, Bills, Texans, Lions, and Commanders. That is a tough schedule. So Arrowhead or not, they're in for some. They're in for a tough run, I think, this year.
Look, they started last year 9-0, Jack. So I'm not going to predict the demise of the dynasty, but I will just question 3 roster building moves for the listeners. And we know this team intimately well. Last year, they were 29th running the ball yards per attempt, right? So I thought they could have tried to find a bit more balance, a bit like, we now have Harbaugh and Robin, so we're heavy run. But can the Chiefs run the ball if they need to? They haven't really addressed the running back room. They're still banking on Pacheco and Kareem Hunt, who didn't get it done last year. Maybe put too much pressure on Mahomes. That's one. Two, they haven't got their offensive tackles set for a long time. They're always bringing in people, moving them out. They go with a very unknown left tackle from the Niners, Jalen Moore, who no one had really heard of, and pay him $15 million a year. And then they take a risk on a prospect, Josh Simmons, whose tape was pretty good, but unfortunately suffered a patella tendon rupture to end his year last year. And I've gone rants on this before. It is the most uncertain injury in the NFL that has ended the careers of Victor Cruz and JC Jackson and Morris Claiborne. And there aren't any real success stories from players who suffer this injury. Jack Conklin is the closest. And there, everyone's saying, what a steal. The Chiefs did it again. Bottom of the first. They took Josh Simmons. Well, he came with risk. And if this doesn't work, that could be another nail in this Chiefs coffin. And the last one, they just made George Karlaftis the 11th highest paid pass rusher in the NFL. I have a bit of a motto of not paying $20 million plus a year for pass rushers who are clean-up guys who aren't actually elite. And even though he's the 11th highest paid pass rusher, last year he was 67th in pass rush win rate, 10.4%, and 93rd in run defense. So he has your 8.5 sacks, 9 sacks, but he's a clean-up sack guy. You're now paying him to be a superstar. When you start adding up these moves, your margin for error becomes thinner, in my opinion. So I'm hopeful that this is the year where they're not going to win 13, 14, 15 games. We're going to come for you. We're coming for you and your shit mo, Andy Reid.
The Walrus. Look, Jack, you mentioned earlier where you one injury away. The Chiefs are one injury away on that interior defensive line to Chris Jones, where you've got Apple on a stick, Jerry Tillery lining up. And I just think with Derek Nardi leaving, Tershawn Wharton played pretty well on that interior as well last year. Josh Uche all going. I just don't know if they're going to be around the area of that 9th in the league for run defense again. And that kind of plays well into the hands of the diversity, I think, of the Chargers running back room to expose a little bit. You want to keep the ball away from Trent McDuffie in the passing game, of course. I agree with you completely, Al. I don't think the dynasty is over. But you got Travis Kelce, who's now a pop star handbag, making cameos in Happy Gilmore 2, being covered in honey eaten by a bear. Lost a step, maybe ate a bit of that honey too, couple of pots. Who knows? Everything good comes to an end eventually. And we've been calling for it for the 4 years now that we've been doing this show. One day we'll be right. But Jack, we've got him week 1 in Brazil. A home game, and then we are, is it week 18 at week 15, I apologize, at Arrowhead. How do we say this unfolding, gentlemen?
Yeah. I mean, on the Tillery one, geez, it's a bit of a Bolts graveyard there with, what's his name at cornerback? Christian Fulton going there. There's Tranquil sitting there. How about Trash? Fuck off. All right, I've got two next morning
Tranquil's
headlines.
like a top 30 linebacker in the league. He's excelled since leaving, and he loves that as well.
Yeah, good for him. I've got next morning headlines, and I've got my predictions. You can probably tell by the next morning headlines what I believe. But my first headline is called The Brazilian Wax Job. Chiefs strip the Bolts bare in Sao Paulo. I think we lose that game 27-23. There's going to be some tricky, shitty, as I said before, trick plays that are going to really frustrate Minter. However, when we go to Arrowhead, I'm going to say Mahomes blue-balled all night. Bolts finish strong. I think we pound them into oblivion with our run game. I think the Chiefs' offensive line at that point at left tackle will be in ruins. And as you said, Andy, very, very adroitly, that I believe that their run defense is going to drop this year. So I'm having the Bolts winning that one 30-23. We split the win.
Ali boy?
Like you, I reckon this is going to be the first time we get a win back against the Chiefs since Staley's first year. But I'm going to swap it. I'm going to say that Herbert and McConkey have some body Portuguese on week 1 Thursday Night Football and get the win. And they'll lose the second matchup at Arrowhead in Kansas City. So that, but 1-1. We're closing.
Yeah.
We're bridging that gap. Hardball football,
Yep.
baby.
Yep. I'm doing the Carnivale victory in week 1 in Brazil, and then just not being able to quite jump that hurdle late in the season, and can't get it done in Arrowhead. So 1-1 for me as well.
The one thing we're forgetting is that Justin Herbert has only left the country once in his life. Don't forget that. Which I find wild, by the way. But that went into my prediction.
It's quite insular. Why do they need to leave? They got everything there, and they're better than everywhere else, you know? All right, we're all 1-1 for the Chargers versus Chiefs. I'm going to take the Las Vegas Raiders. The Chargers play away in week 2, Monday Night Football at Allegiant Stadium, and then we have them at home in week 13. And as it always is, it's an eventful off-season. Tom Brady becomes part owner in 2024, has a look at what's going on with Telesco and Antonio Pierce and goes, not in my building. So he shows them the door, brings in John Spytek, the savvy new GM, a former outside linebacker at Michigan at the turn of the century, if that timeline sounds familiar. Worked as an intern in operations at Detroit, an intern in player personnel at Philly, time at Cleveland and Denver, before finally being hired as the director of player personnel for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 2016, contributing to the acquisition of Tom Brady, former Michigan teammate, if that timeline hint didn't land. Furthermore, the Raiders hire Pete Carroll. Of course, success USC, Seattle Super Bowl winning coach. So this successful organizational additions has been the primary focus, and then just trying to sort of patch over a couple of issues that the team had last year. So Spytek turfs Minshew, signs Geno Smith, immediately upgrading the quarterback position. The running back room that was pretty woeful with Alexander Madison has been replaced. Raheem Mostert comes across, and with the 6th overall pick, generational running back from Boise State, Ashton Genty, joins. Offensive line, I think, remains a little stagnant. Andre James, former center, is now a depth piece at the Chargers. And through free agency, the Raiders decided to go and get arguably the worst interior offensive lineman in 2024, the sack leaker guard Alex Kappa. See you later from Cincy. Defensively, I'm intrigued by the linebacker room changing up with Robert Spillane and Divine Diablo, who were have been bugbears of the Chargers in years past. They are moved on, replaced with a Landon Roberts, who's pretty handy from Pittsburgh, and then sort of committee kind of depth, Jermaine Pratt, Cincy, Devin White from Houston. So kind of out with we'll see how that shift changes. But look, the biggest defensive, oh God, what would an offseason be without just an absolute disaster coming out of Las Vegas? That defensive line before probably 10 days ago was almost the best in the league. But Christian Wilkins just continues with his funny business. He follows in Tom Brady's footsteps of inappropriate kissing. Please see teenage son by the massage table. Wilkins has a history of how's it going? He's got mysterious dancing fingers that just find their way into dark spots. And then, with a bit of fun, he decides to kiss a teammate on the head. Which head? Very good question, Andy. He gets reported to the team and released. Guaranteed money suspended. Files grievance with the NFLPA. Another glorious shit show in Las Vegas. And leaving a big hole on the defensive line. So, I could leave it there. I could run all day. We almost need a show on its own to talk about this Raiders offseason. We got Pete Carroll, who's asking for Hubba Bubba. Christian Wilkins thinks he's saying Hubba Hubba. It's just an absolute disaster. Carroll's out there running routes and doing stuff that 77-year-old, 72, however old he is. There's some geriatricity, if we will, with the AFC coaches, AFC West coaches. We've got Harbaugh, Andy Reid, Pete Carroll, all standing around the Domino's table going, khakis galore, chewing gum, just crazy business. So, look, I'm not sleeping on the Raiders. I do think they're going to be a better team than they were last year, but there's just a couple more kinks that they need to iron out, pun intended, on that one. Week 2 is a great time to get them, I think, early in the season, even though it's away. They're still going to be, just trying to find their feet a bit. And then, as I said, we'll take them on again later in the season. So, guys, how are we viewing this front office change? The direction of the Raiders. Obviously, a good thing from where they were. But how quick, Jack, do you see the turnaround being? Pete Carroll coming in, new GM. Is it a 10-win season straight off the bat? Or is there going to be a few teething issues?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I think they'll be improved because I think Pete Carroll is an improvement to where they were. I feel like they've gotten better in the head office. I feel like at the quarterback position they've gotten better, not by much. I mean, I think their ceiling is perhaps 8 wins. They'll fight to a point. They'll be frustrating to play against. I think they're going to run a lot of heavy personnel. I think both the Chiefs and the Raiders, because when you look at the Raiders wide receiver room, there is not much there beside Trey Tucker, and even then, if he's your number one, then I'm a little bit worried. But then you've got your Brock Bowers and your Michael Mayer, and you never know. Michael Mayer has had some mental health concerns in the past. I loved him coming out. He was at Notre Dame, I believe. I would have loved him to come to the Chargers. Brock Bowers, we know his talent. You're right, Andy. The offensive line doesn't look particularly solid, but they just re-signed Colton Miller, I'm fairly sure. Parham I liked. JPJ I liked. Glaze and Kappa, that right side doesn't look too good. I just think they're going to be around that mark again. They're going to be frustrating to play against, but I would see the Chargers having far more quality and depth to the roster in this sense. So, yeah, they're rebuilding as they go. I think Geno Smith's not the answer. Neither is Aiden O'Connell. They'll be wanting to dip into the quarterback market in the next 2 years, at least, I'd say, in the draft. So, probably don't want to win too much. But again, I think they're going to be better than, what did they win? 3 games last year, I think. So, 4 games. I reckon they're a 6 to 8 win team.
Yeah, I was pretty taken by the initial press conference with Spytek and Carroll, who both speak really well and had, you buy what they're selling. They've both been at successful organizations, but it had, on reflection, looking at recent news and the roster in depth, it just has more of that flashy Vegas neon sign feeling, but the substance might not be there. It might break up your marriage if you go to Vegas. I don't know if it's long-term the best thing for your health. And what was the trigger for me is Pete Carroll, the 73-year-old, was questioned the other day, are you a win now team? Are you rebuilding? And he basically said, I've been winning 10 games per year every year, for 20 years. And he didn't win 10 games in any of his last 3 seasons as Seattle's coach. So that was just that moment of, has this guy still got it? Geno Smith unbelievably ended up being PFF's tied 6th ranked quarterback last year with Baker Mayfield. Believe in that what you will. Maybe he's not a long-term franchise savior, but I do think he's quite a lot better than what they've had recently with Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. So I think they're going to be competitive immediately, but I don't think they have the depth on defense along their lines. I still think the defensive line is a big problem, especially after Christian Wilkins has left, the interior in particular. So I could see them winning 7 games, 8 games, and Raiders fans will feel like they're on the right path. They're going to have Genty, right? They're going to run the ball with Genty. Brock Bowers was a first-team All-Pro as a rookie. I've always rated Jacoby Myers as a wide receiver. They've got some weapons. It should
Jack
keep them
Besh
in games.
as well. He's got that
don't
dog
forget
in him.
that. I like the draft they had. I think they're going to turn this around, not this year. So I still think they're a work in progress, Andy.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, as I said, I think they'll be better, but I don't I think you've just got to taper your expectations if you're a Raiders fan. But yeah, that's the Pete Carroll sort of arrogance, machismo of like, oh, I've done this, and it's like we actually haven't, pal. But you still got to. I think this year you've certainly got to treat this Raiders team with a little bit more respect than last year. They could surprise. I'm going with a sweep of the Raiders. I think, as I said, the away game in week 2 is a good time to get them, and then blow them out as the season goes on, and they wear thin at that defensive line. It's going to cause a lot of trouble when they're relying on their back end to keep them in games. So also, it's great having Genty as your running back. I think he's going to be awesome and translate really well into the pros from college, but I just don't know if this year they're going to have a strong enough offensive line to aid him and be as reliant on him. So 2-0 for the Chargers against the Raiders for me. Jack.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. He's going to be a workhorse back. I think he's one of those fantasy darlings. Not that we do fantasy. I do have a headline that kind of sums up the Raiders preseason so far, and it's ironic. I thought Christian Wilkins loved black holes. And I have them going 2-0 as well. There we go. The Bolts, I should say.
Yep. I'm just going to let that hang for the listeners. Me too. I thought about saying 1-1 because I think that week 2 Monday Night Football game at Vegas will be challenging, and we don't know how good Genty is, right? What if he is an absolute game changer? But I will hold hard and heavy and say the Chargers do go 2-0 and sweep the Raiders again this year. Alrighty, to round out the AFC West, let's go to Denver to talk about these Broncos. And I got a little something for you. From the man who brought us the Bounty Gate scandal. He's the type of guy who wears his Super Bowl ring when coaching his son's 6th grade high school football team. What a jerk, huh? Yes, Sean Payton thinks Sean Payton's pretty good. Just ask him. He'll tell ya, all while wearing a visor. If you're a colleague and unlucky, he might just tell media you've done one of the worst coaching jobs in the history of the NFL. Now, this summer, at Broncos training camp, Sean Payton brings us his worst quote yet. Bo Nix, he's the perfect fit for anyone that wants to win.
Very good. I appreciated that.
That is his recent, just add it to the list. Sean Payton pumps up. He just speaks so much rubbish. Bo Nix, he's the perfect fit for anyone that wants to win. But we do need to take these guys somewhat seriously, I think, because last year they did win 10 games. And Jack, if you look at this team, they went from a 5-win outfit with Hackett. Payton comes in and wins 8 games in his first season in 2023 and wins 10 games and makes the playoffs last year. And they were really good on both sides of the ball. I don't think there's any ways to get around. Their defense was a top 2 defense in the NFL last year. EPA per play against the rush, they ranked 2nd, and against the pass, they ranked 1st. I mean, this is an aggressive, blitz-heavy Vance Joseph team. Today, they just signed Zach Allen to an extension, who is coming off a really good year. I think he might have made the All-Pro last year, if I'm not mistaken. 2nd team All-Pro, 8.5 sacks, 81 pressures. The question, though, Jack, are you buying the Bo Nix experience? He came in at number 64 in the NFL's top 100 last year. So the players are buying it. I've got some deep analytics, but I won't start with that. What's your gut tell you about Bo Nix?
I saw enough from him. The big dig on him at the start of the year was that he's a dink and dunk. He doesn't have an arm. He's your Drew Brees type, 5 to 10 to 15 yards, relatively accurate, moves the chains a little bit. Decision making was okay for a rookie, I thought. But then as the year went on, he did start to just let that arm loose a little bit. And there was a big touchdown pass I remember watching. It wasn't against us. I can't remember who the opponent was, but I've gone, wow, okay, that's pretty good. And I sort of feel whether the running back room doesn't look incredible, but I still think the wide receiver and what they've done at tight end, you've got Sutton, Mims, Sherfield, Ingram, Troutman. There's just these guys that aren't incredible. I mean, Cortland Sutton I've always enjoyed, but they're big receiver types, guys that can win at the point, and I think that really suits Bo Nix. Dare I say it? The man who wears a visor is actually doing some pretty good team building, I think. So I'm all interested to hear your analytics.
Yeah.
Look, credit first, because we always say, rookie quarterbacks, give them some leeway, don't expect them to be good immediately. And Bo Nix did throw the 8th most touchdowns in the league with 30 and had the 4th best pressure to sack ratio. So I thought he was really good at seeing the field, getting the ball out of his hands quickly. And this was a good stat. He threw for a league high 904 yards on passes while on the run, the 4th most by any quarterback in a season since 2016. And all the other 3 are held by Patrick Mahomes. So running around, he's sneaky athletic, I thought. But Andy, I'll set you up. Like a few things that are just red flags for me. And is he elite? Is he going to be able to beat Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes? 2nd highest behind the line of scrimmage throw percentage in the NFL behind Tua, 22%. 15% of his throws were screens, 3rd highest in the NFL. Tied for 20th out of 25 quarterbacks in yards per attempt, 6.7. So it seems like Payton was protecting him. But can you use that style and can you take that all the way, like Breeze and Brady? Or is he finally going to have to show more on 3rd and longs, and that's where he gets unstuck, like he did against the Chargers last year?
He does have the ability to use his legs, and he is on the move a lot. He is protected. He's got a good line in front of him. But it's that old adage of now the league has has 16, 17 games of Bo Nix tape, and there's a better way to sort of plan for him. So I think he is going to have to improve, and I think the philosophy, Sean Payton's philosophy around how he's utilizing Bo Nix will have to adapt and adjust, because teams are going to be a little bit more savvy on that. Will I see him fall away? 10 wins, 30 touchdowns. Do I see that happening again? I think there's the potential, but I feel like it's just going to go down a notch from what it was last year. But it's that defense that is just so good. With Defensive Player of the Year, Patrick Surtain, they do lose a couple of linebackers, Zach Cunningham and Cody Barton. Happy to see Cody Barton gone from the AFC West, but they bring in Dre Greenlaw. They draft Jade Barron, and they sign Talanoa Hufanga.
That's a good defense.
It's a great defense, man. So you're really going to have to be on and get away with a couple of things from your offense in order to sort of maximize what you can, force Bo Nix into a state of panic. And we're really going to need to see a slide back, if you will, to be confident playing against the Broncos this year. So
Andy, can the offense keep up with the defense? So I won't go through it, but they're 10-7 record last year. They basically beat all the bad teams and lost to every good team. I know the Chargers had a bit of that, but that's how their season played out. On offense, Cortland Sutton had 141 targets. The next most, get this, Javonte Williams with 68, 141 to 68. Wow. Have they done enough to help Bo Nix in his second year on that side of the ball?
Well, Javonte Williams has gone to the Dallas Cowboys, so there goes 68 of your targets. They bring in J.K. Dobbins, not the greatest receiving back. Draft R.J. Harvey. So that reliance on the screens and the dump-offs to the running backs might be tested a little bit. You're very one-dimensional in targeting Cortland Sutton as much as you can, but he does have all the tools to, be a wide receiver one. They've got
Ingram's the big wild card, isn't he? It's all
really is.
Evan Ingram.
Ingram's wide receiver two, essentially. That's what he is. He's not a blocking tight end. He's your wide receiver two, even though he's lined up. I mean, Cortland Sutton could be your tight end one, kind of. Like they're sort of very similar. Evan Ingram's just a little bit bigger. But I think
you'd almost expect Evan Ingram to, if he remains healthy, had a bit of trouble with that last year, to fit that kind of Jimmy Graham New Orleans Saints mold of that reliable pass-catching tight end. Probably not the skill set that Jimmy Graham possessed, but that's sort of what you're going to be looking at. And I think, as far as pass-catching tight ends go, the Chargers do pretty well to cover those. We've got Derwin James who will sit in the slot on him and probably nullify him. So look, it's going to be really, really interesting to see how these unfold. We've got them at SoFi in week 13 and then off to the snowy Mile High to finish off the regular season. Jack, how do you see these two matchups unfolding? It's the first time, or forgive me, in how long we had swept the Broncos last year and won at Mile High. Do you think we continue that trend in 2025?
It's going to be tough, right? Because I think playing in Sao Paulo and then playing away at Las Vegas and then playing at home, I think we might be a bit tired. And I have it splitting 1-1. I feel like we win in Denver at week 18, but I just feel after 2 big weeks of Monday Night Football that we're going to be tired come week 3. And I think it'll be frustrating when they'll get us. That defense is scary. That defense is very scary. And I'm a bit worried for Herbert's life that game, especially, as you said, Hufanga feels like a Denver player. He's going to be hard hitting. He's going to be fast. So please, McConkey, watch out. So I have them splitting. I have us losing week 3, but winning week 18. It's going to be an important one in week 18 for us.
Ooh, Jack, we are simpatico, my friend. Your body English is speaking to me. I have the Chargers being 2-0, starting off with wins, Chiefs, Raiders, and then it's the home game week 3 they drop, and the Broncos find a way to win, but then the Chargers win in week 18 at Mile High. I'm the exact same, splitting at 1-1 this time.
No, I'm feeling pretty good about this. Going to disagree with both of you. 2-0 for the Chargers, sweeping the Broncos again. I don't think it's going to be an easy walkover, and I wouldn't be surprised if I'm not bang on the money, but I just feel like as much as they've improved, we've got Jesse Minter, we've got an offensive line and a running back room that can work against having to rely on the passing game against that secondary, and I just have, going 2-0, confidence. We've got appropriate breaks. Silence, dog. We've got some lengthy breaks after the traveling and then away at Vegas, and I think we'll be well enough rested at the start of the year if we had that kind of traveling, which the team does across the season. But if we had that sort of later, then I'd be a little bit more concerned. So I'm going to take 2-0 against the Broncos, which gives me 5-1 in the division. Not bad, not bad. Anything further from you, gentlemen?
Good to go.
Antonio Gates, I may as well shout it out. We did at the start. I know it was great, but he's another guy. I'm glad he got his gold jacket. And Phillip Rivers becomes eligible for the first time next year. Will he be a first ballot guy? Will he have to wait a few years? Time will tell. But for now, Chargers fans, enjoy it. Watch the ceremony and enjoy Chargers football being back. I'm happy to be back talking ball with you guys.
Yeah, it's good to have football back, and it's going to be a promising preseason to watch unfold. It's really exciting from the Chargers side of things for how these guys are playing for Coach Harbaugh and for Minter and for Greg Roman. And also just special to note, first ever Hall of Fame inductee to have never played college football snap. Just incredible. So
you're telling me I still have a chance? I have a chance?
Hey, man, anything's possible. Guys, it's been awesome breaking down the Hall of Fame game, talking AFC West. Hope you enjoyed it too. And we will see you next time on the Thunder Down Under Chargers podcast. Hooray.
Bye.
Backpedals looking, firing. He's got Floyd turning. Got it. 6 10, 5, high step, touchdown, San Diego!